What was all the fuss about? He says after writing a 3,000-word video essay on why it's crunch time for Arsenal. But the manner in which we responded to our recent patch of poor results and performances in our 4-0 win at Elland Road against Leeds United was vindication of the enjoyment, the courage and conviction that Mikel Arteta called for earlier this week. And from a Mikel Arteta crazed process point of view, it was probably a perfect away day. And by the way, this video is being recorded before Manchester City face Spurs, so are we 4 points clear? Are we 6? Are we 7? Who knows? Well, you know now. Come on, you beautiful, beautiful Spurs. After the game, Daniel Farke said that we had an answer to everything that Leeds asked of us. And today's analysis is going to break down how Arsenal earned the right to win. A quote that is probably a kind of staple Arteta-ism now. The changes to our in-possession dynamics, the partnerships we returned to, and the new relationships Arteta was testing out. Why the timing of these changes felt so critical. How things changed from the first to the second half, and what still needs a bit of work. But also, how this allowed us to rediscover our dominance off the ball. And after building this platform, it was all about addressing that risk balance I spoke about in my last video, the intent to play in different areas of the pitch, before I then wrap up and look at some details. To the real, tangible improvements of Gyokeres' centre-forward fundamentals, Odegaard's cameo, some funky tactical images and templates I want to give some further consideration to, and much, much more as ever. Let's get started. This is a passes received map from the game, from Thomas Tarantino on X. What do you see? For me, it's clear that it's a return to those pairs I've spoken about before and Clive Palmer has been so outspoken on. And this is how it worked out on the pitch. And while there are certain dynamics I'm not sold on yet, this was a return to some pre-December ideas, whilst adding some fresh ones on top. With Odegaard left out, Arteta returned to a base of 4 in settled build-up, in which both Rice and Zubimendi were left to marshal our deeper touches, but also because we were much more concerned with Leeds pumping it long to Calvert-Lewin than necessarily transitioning quickly on us, it meant one of our pivots could join in higher, with Rice here swirling around the left half space as Calafiori from left back would. Timber is back in that half and half role from fullback, which basically means instead of already pinning and being static in the spaces where Kai is floating around, he can pick his moments when he wants to be dangerous, when he wants to join in higher. What did this look like on the pitch? We set our structure here with Rice and Zubimendi flip this time, and as Kai travels into those central zones to form a pair, a vertical pair with Gyokeres, Timber can become an option. And without Odegaard, Timber is always going to have a more ball-dominant role from right back. And here Timber ends up in the exact same positions we've seen him take up in recent weeks, trying to maximise the space for Madueke to drive at his man into, and create those easy box entries. But the difference is that he has arrived there with some more thrust. So it's no real surprise that Timber had a better game from an attacking contribution point of view. He was also our free man in build-up against Leeds as they jumped into their 4-4-2 press from their 5-4-1 block, with Bogle joining their midfield. But with Havertz and Madueke high, Goodmanson couldn't jump or didn't want to jump onto Timber. And when Leeds did jump in their press, we've got Noni as our outlet, Havertz on that same line as Gyokeres, causing uncertainty and a block, and if it weren't for Ampadu's brilliant challenge, Havertz has got a free effort in the box. And if there's one cross that Timber has found a bit of consistency with this season, it's this kind of whipped ball across the box. And it speaks to how he was allowed in this game to mix up his positions again, sometimes overlap. Here we're twinning in the box so Zubimendi can invade that space in the high right pocket in the half space again, as we know he loves to do. And he hits one of those spins we've seen before too, but it's a poor pick out. And I'm not here to paint a picture of the first half attacking performance that wasn't there. We didn't have any particularly really fluid sequences through the lines, and our pocket presence was less players receiving in these spaces but arriving into them. But we remained a threat, and that's how we got the corner preceding Zubimendi's opener. Timber and Zubimendi weren't sitting high, they were joining in. Madueke chopped in Timber, whose cross was eventually blocked. And on a side note, how Madueke mixes his paces, stops, starts his defenders in 1v1s is incredible. And knowing you can create this separation, this is something I've said before, knowing you can create this separation so easily means you can slow things down more in the crossing moment, ensuring you get that more consistent ball striking and whip in a beautiful cross like Madueke does here. And as if by magic, the build-up to the corner we score our second from is Zubimendi and Timber swirling around that high right pocket. Again, Noni wins the corner, and it really should go down as his goal. But let's return to this lens of tactical flexibility I'm framing this video as, because finally we have a proper outball again to play over the top of a press. I spoke about Kai making those drifts just below Gyokeres on the same line. We did it in a different way pre-December with Eze starting there and asking questions of whether the centre-backs want to jump or allow the overload between the lines. But Kai gives us that double-edged sword of pumping it long to him and of suddenly looking so much more dominant in those pinball situations in the centre of the pitch. This comes from a Darlow kick. Hincapié is sharp on Bogle, who was Leeds' attempted free man throughout the game, and Kai is first to the spills. And in the final third, we can see Havertz's spatial awareness, his overlapping here of Trossard, who again was tasked being that kind of linker in our front line, who picks out Gyokeres, who, don't worry, I'll get on to. Gyokeres finds Havertz really well, and it winds up in a tame Zubimendi shot. I've spoken about before, haven't I, what, at least on paper, I don't like about the Havertz-Gyokeres duo. I don't think there's enough unsettling central dribbling, that touch heaviness and ingenuity that a Jesus and Eze, or, as we saw later in the game, and I'll get on to, a Martinelli can maybe provide in that pair. And these kinds of counter movements still have to gel between Gyokeres and Havertz. Kai's shown he's got that Marino-like release on the ball, but I'm not sold on this yet. But there was a trade-off, crucially, that Mikel Arteta was accepting against Leeds, when I'm speaking about earning that right to win first, bringing the temperature of the game down. Earning the right to win isn't something new out of the Arteta quote book, it's a pillar that he's built the whole team from. And the balance of Gyokeres and Havertz, and the whole team defensively I want to speak about now, was colossal. This is going to get nerdy, but I don't apologise at all. We know how pivotal Martin Odegaard has been for our out-of-possession identity, but injuries have meant he hasn't been as relentless as we've come to know this season, and he's sat a bit deeper in the front too, whilst our right winger has been the one to jump onto the opposition's left centre-back. But just watch in these sequences how intelligent, how intense, how equally fluid and bulletproof this out-of-possession setup was looking for us against Leeds. In our block here, Kai and Gyokeres begin on the Leeds pivot with Zubimendi on Aronson and Rice deeper, I'll come on to that, on Stach at the top of Leeds' box midfield. As the pass comes into the Leeds pivot, Noni now closes it down, with Timber in his hybrid role now pushing onto Gudmundsson. Kai recognises that Madueke wants to sprint at the left centre-back, so sits lower on the pivot he's left, with Gyokeres doing the same. Noni forces Leeds back to the goalkeeper, and our front two step through with equal intensity. We force Leeds long to where Gabriel was simply monstrous on Calvert-Lewin all game, and because Havertz and Gyokeres had that understanding of who goes and who covers, Rice can sit lower, protecting us in that kind of power triangle of him, Gabriel and Saliba in those second ball situations. Our responsibilities are crystal clear and our angles are spot on once again, with Zubimendi stepping into that place we normally see Rice get excited into and try to turn the ball over in. Darlow goes long, Gabriel wins it, Rice is close by, but Kai is first on the scene. And in an Arteta Arsenal, we know your focus off the ball can never waver. Against Leeds, we were so modular in terms of who made the jumps to press the ball. So you need that certainty that you're being backed up where you can't look. And two examples here of Trossard applying pressure and Gyokeres understanding that this leaves the 6 Ampadu free. is brilliant. These may be tiny details, but it matters so much in keeping us compact throughout the phases. So, 2-0 up at half-time and we'd secured our base to build off, and with Leeds mounting a period of not chances but pressure from minute 50 to 65, Arteta freshened up our outlets legs, bringing Martinelli on, and he also brought Odegaard on too, or should I say, first touch Odegaard. The reason I say first touch Odegaard is because if we look at Martin's best performances in his broken season so far, Villa, Brentford and Brighton at home, there's been a purpose, a speed and maybe an earliness to his actions and a happiness sometimes to sit a bit more central and let the right-hand side figure itself out sometimes. And we haven't seen that recently in the setup that we've been deploying under Mikel in the last few games, and obviously I've spoken already about that. We still looked to play through Odegaard to allow him to be our hub, but after Arteta's comments about Odegaard's positioning outside the block not always being an instruction, it felt like more than a nudge for Odegaard to still go hunting for spaces, but on a different axis, like this, more central, more inside if he's going to try and stay with this Arsenal team who are continuing to evolve. Add to this Martinelli being creative with his running angles, and this from Gyokeres, and Arsenal go 3-0 up. And it's easy to tell, isn't it, when Arsenal are in that have fun mode on the ball, because you get still images like this with Martinelli given total free rein to form that Havertz-Gyokeres pair, but with Jesus tipping a diamond with Odegaard at the base and Rice and Zubimendi on the sides. And it's a first time whip from Odegaard up to Rice who stampedes away, and it ends up in a Jesus effort just going wide. If the first half was one where we had to earn the right, I think it was correct not to start Martin Odegaard. And as that temperature, that picture changed in the second half, and he connects us here with his first touch again, and Calafiori is the one who connects us into the final third, looking to play at those weird angles and diagonals. How fun and unpredictable does this setup look, with Calafiori kick-starting a sequence, then space invading, Odegaard playing with purpose and at angles that encourage that purpose, Martinelli, Jesus, Eze, all moving off each other, the rest defence is still set. And for Jesus, who I maintain is just a brilliant cameo player, and no, those terms don't cancel each other out. How he swivels so he has Strauch exactly where he wants him, how he manipulates him from then on and fires his shot away, that is special. And now those central combinations we want to see more of were coming in a deluge. Eze and Martinelli were moving off each other, Zubimendi finding Calafiori here in that central spot between the lines, with Martinelli and Odegaard flanking him. It was the perfect amount of enjoyment, courage and conviction that Arteta promised and we need to see more of. I want to finish with Gyokeres, someone I've critiqued right down to the level of details in his box movement and hold-up play, but I thought he looked more stable against Leeds, maybe the most stable he's looked in an Arsenal shirt in his back-to-goal play, using his arms here more effectively, angling himself sideways on in a securer position to link with Havertz, and also making more of those double movements in the box, and this bleeds into his play across the pitch. Creating that separation from your man is the currency for centre-forwards, because your defender otherwise is just going to follow you everywhere. It's not there yet, and there are other partnerships I really want to explore alongside Kai Havertz, but I left that game feeling we've got a much more stable centre-forward to potentially work off. And if you haven't already, go back and watch minute 72 of the game with Leeds, where Viktor chests it down to Gyokeres as he was looking much more confident after that goal. Then he tracks back just on the edge of our box and snaps into a tackle, and then is sprinting the other way again on the break. Go and watch that sequence, that passage of play if you haven't. I won't lie, we needed this performance. And yes, the result of the Spurs-Manchester City game will now be known by you and me, but however many points that leaves us clear, as Arsenal have qualified for the knockout stages of the Champions League after 8 out of 8 wins, after we have just one foot, in the EFL Cup final and still in the FA Cup. We need more of that enjoyment, that courage and conviction if we are to leave a legacy. In Declan Rice's words, we have to take this chance. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you very, very shortly. See you later.